This is the Conscious Hour, and this is probably one of the best reality checks, especially for the younger generation um, that didn't learn anything about history, especially international history, the world. When my daughter was born in '84, I thought she was, get a good education. I never paid attention to what she was being taught or not taught. And as I realized being an elder, that the younger generation has no reflection of the past. They know nothing about history because we have to remember we see who runs our country. So what we educated our young people about was not about history. We didn't want to get them too educated because then they would go against the military industrial complex because we're spending hundreds of trillions of dollars not benefiting Americans but benefiting the corporations. Listen to this history lesson. This is really important to watch, and please share it.
I would say that this is an indication that the world is in a position of great instability that has been occasioned by the kind of reckless behavior of President Donald Trump. I mean, this reckless behavior begins on the 3rd of January. I'm speaking to you from Caracas, Venezuela. In Caracas, the United States violated Article 2 of the United Nations Charter, came in and seized, kidnapped President Nicolas Maduro, the first combatant Celia Flores. And then a few weeks later, basically mafia threatened the Venezuelan government to stop, with other countries, to stop sending oil to Cuba. Cuba hasn't received oil since early December. I was in Cuba last week. The situation.
So what's really going on? It's called gangster capitalism. So start spreading that word. I launched that about 5 months ago. Gangster capitalism. Uber wealthy people wanting to control everything.
There is dire. We met the Cuban president. We met the leadership in that country. We were informed directly. They are willing to resist any attempt to violate the sovereignty of Cuba. But they said that the situation is dire. They are looking for a way to get fuel to the island. About a third of Cuba's fuel is produced domestically. They're trying to increase the use of solar panels, other forms of energy. But George, it is a very difficult situation. This is a Pandora's box that the United States opened. You're going to violate the UN Charter by violating Article 2. Well, things are going to happen. And then the United States, few weeks after, began this quite horrendous second war against Iran. I don't want people to forget that last year in July, there was a 12-day war, an illegal war by Israel and the United States against Iran. This is the second war in less than 2 years that the United States and Iran have imposed on Iran. Iran did not start this war. Israel and the United States started this war. Well, you have a situation of grave instability. I suppose what the Chinese are thinking is that they have to exercise their sovereignty over Taiwan now before the United States does something quite stupid, like, for instance, placing a nuclear weapon in Taiwan. I wouldn't put it past the Trump administration to try to do something reckless to take the attention away from Iran.
Let's turn then to the big enchilada of the moment, which is the reckless, illegal war to which you've just referred. It was, of course, reckless. It was, of course, illegal. But it was also very stupid, wasn't it? It has backfired spectacularly. It's the least popular war in American history. Something like 16% of the American public support it. Fine young Americans sent to their deaths, American treasure being burned, blood being shed on an enormous scale, war crimes being carried out, the one we talked about with the ship, but the war crime of deliberately bombing the ancient and historic sites, 5,000-year-old sites in Isfahan, the war crime.
So why are they bombing the sites? Because they wanted to erase history. Because if you actually were taught history, you would understand that Iran has no interest in invading any country. They just want to be simply sovereign and be left alone. But no, that Western hegemony, the Diablos, they just want to keep conquering countries and putting our kids in harm's way to go over there to fight for corporation. That's why this whole thing's called gangster capitalism.
Of the little girls who were murdered, it's turned out to be a thoroughgoing disaster for the empire, has it not?
Well, let's go back 50 years, George, and consider that there is a feast of propaganda that says that the United States is good at using its military. In fact, quite the opposite. And let me very quickly run down the record so that we're all on the same page on this. The United States pursued an illegal and grotesque war in Korea. And what you have now is a divided Korea. There was no victory in Korea. In fact, there was merely an armistice in 1953. That war continues. Then move to Vietnam. The United States in 1975 had to flee Vietnam because it in fact lost the war. Vietnam now is united, is governed by the Communist Party in Vietnam. United States, after many, many attempts to control Afghanistan, had to basically admit defeat after using every single piece of its arsenal except nuclear weapons. I mean, that war started in 1978 and continued all the way till 2020, 2022. That was a defeat for the United States. United States went to war in Iraq in 2003, but in fact started that war in 1991. Was able to remove Saddam Hussein, but does not control the government in Iraq. Then if you move to Libya, United States and France conducted a grotesque war in Libya, destroyed the country, murdered Muammar Gaddafi, and now has left it a ruin. They don't control it. It is a ruin. Which war as such has the United States ever won in modern times? I don't know. I would like to be told. I know there's a reputation of the United States as being able to use its military and win things. What the United States military is very good at, George, is breaking things. It's not very good at building things or controlling things. It's excellent at breaking things. I'll give them that. They lost the war against Cuba in 1962 when they invaded at the Bay of Pigs. They tried to assassinate Fidel Castro 100 times, maybe more. Some say 900 times. Failed each time. The United States is not that competent. We believe that Israel is very competent. If Israel were very competent, why hasn't Israel been able to destroy the Palestinian resistance, which is fighting it with the minimal amount of arms? There's Israel with every single modern weapon the United States has. And then there are the Palestinians with effectively the kind of guns that you and I might go on a hunt together with. And yet Israel cannot destroy the Palestinians. What people need to understand is wars are not won merely by arms. Wars are won by politics. And if your politics is all wrong, you cannot subordinate people. You cannot bring them to your side. What happened in World War II was, and this is something that people do not accept, but must accept. What happened in World War II was that the Chinese communists and patriots, who lost 25 million people pinning the Japanese down in Asia, the Chinese communists and patriots and the Soviet citizens, 27 million of whom died, and who defeated 80% of the German Wehrmacht, the German army in the Eastern Front. They won the war against fascism together. The United States enters late into the war, loses 500,000 people compared to 52 million Soviets and Chinese. So even in that war, the United States didn't win. It was the politics of anti-fascism that enabled the Soviet Union and the Chinese to defeat Japanese and German fascism, as well as Italian fascism. They won politically. There was enormous cost of life, of course. I don't want to undermine that, but there was a politics. What's the politics in this ridiculous adventure in Iran? What does the United States want to do? They want to put the Crown Prince of Iran, rejected even by people in the diaspora, not a chance. In Venezuela, Marie Corina Machado, an absolute joke of a person. Even Trump decided she was not worth fit for purpose. I mean, what are we talking about, George? Let's first think about, Keir Starmer, unfit for purpose in the UK. Let's think about Emmanuel Macron, unfit for purpose. How are countries like Iran, with thousands of years of history, going to take lessons from such puny politicians as Keir Starmer and Donald Trump? They have their own traditions. They don't need American bombs to place leaders upon their people. They don't need that.
This is the Conscious Hour, folks, and that's your reality check. So wrap your head around that. We don't learn. Well, we don't learn because we've never been taught about the truth. And so now we got to spread the truth. This is the Conscious Hour. Let's spread this out so people can get educated. And we need to reform our education system, don't you think? It's just a big propaganda machine for the military-industrial complex. This is the Conscious Hour. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and share. I know this is longer than what a lot of people want to focus on, but this one's really important you understand what history is about, so you don't let the Beltway bandits continually to rip us off and not spend our tax dollars overseas, but spend our tax dollars in the United States, making America great again for all Americans. This is the Conscious Hour. Please hit the like button and share, and please donate to the 501c3. The money comes in, goes right back out to people in need.